Okay, today doing one on the early Browning R27 S23. Um, One of the earlier or first Browning, big two-piece bases they came up with. Not the earliest, but one of the earlier and one of the most popular back then. So this is the R27 receiver only we're doing today. This is a customers trying to get my customers out the way so I can work on me. So down to one or two items left with customers. So we getting there. R27 receiver here. Some people love them because they have excellent quality receive. The tone and the audio is great on them. But on the other hand, back when they made this radio, and I had looked it up, but I think it was 64 to 66. So this radio is 60 years old, basically. But back in the 60s when this was made, there weren't a lot of CBers around, so you could make it with, not needing a whole lot of rejection and separation and all that because it wasn't a whole lot of CBers out there to, have high-powered signals, to, have adjacent channel rejection and separation. Who needs separation when ain't nobody out there, in the 60s? So they concentrated on the quality and tone of the receive with this radio. Instead of trying to get the maximum adjacent channel rejection, separation, and all that, right? You can't have both. To me, it's like having a sports car versus a luxury car. The best sports car is going to have a big engine and be fast. It's going to ride rough, be low, not a lot of room, not a lot of weight. Whereas the best luxury car is going to have smooth suspension and ride good. You can't have the best of both worlds in one thing. You can compromise, but you're not going to have the best of both worlds. And I think Browning with this one went more toward the audio quality tone instead of the rejection, separation, and all that, which isn't a bad thing. And I think because of that, many people prefer this radio. I think if you're in an area where there is not a lot of congestion, this would be the Browning to have. However, if you're in Detroit like me, where there's still quite a few CBers hanging on, there's some high-powered guys on 6 and 11 and all that, I think you would want a radio with better rejection and separation, and you would sacrifice a little bit of the audio tone. What Browning did on this one, and this one only, the R27 and 2700 series, it's basically a single conversion receiver. And single conversion is known to give you a better tone, especially on SSB, but even on AM. But mind you, this is an AM only radio. Single conversion works great on SSB because it's a narrower band, whereas AM is a wider band. And normally if you want to get, filter everything out, you need two different sets of filtering, and that's the double conversion. But with this early radio here, they didn't necessarily need that back then, so they went with the single conversion. That can there's the mixer. You got new Vista tubes, which are low noise tubes, so they that's your front end with the Vistas. And then that mixer there. And then after the mixer, everything is 455 kilohertz, one conversion, single conversion, and that's these K-Tran IF cans here. And you see that there are a total of 4, 5, 6 of those K-Tran IF 455 kilohertz cans. And what they did, they got a wide and narrow on this radio. And on narrow, these double sets here, it only uses one. So on narrow, you basically got your mixer that mixes it down to the 455 kilohertz, and then it goes to one set of these 455 kilohertz filters to filter out the noise and the hash and mass and all that on the wide. So it's not as sharp, and the audio tone is more pure on the wide because it's not going through those as many filters. It's not as sharp, so you get a wider, smoother, higher quality audio frequency spot on wide, just going through 3 or actually 4 of those. You know, one set of each of these, then this one, and then this one, right? But on narrow, what it does is it switches in these two in series and these two in series. So you got your 455 kilohertz coming out of the mixer, and then it goes through that set. Then both of them in series, then it's amplified, and then through that set. And that's what slims it down or narrows the frequency response some. So it's not as pure, it's not as wide. It's going to filter out some of that, especially high-pitched stuff, but it filters out your sound. So it's not going to sound as good on the narrow. However, it's going to filter out a lot of that noise and hash and trash doing it that way. Again, you can't have the best of both worlds. What Browning did with this one, you got the wide and narrow. But you're still a single conversion. It's still not going to have as good of specs on the rejection side and the separation side as a double conversion, as in all the Brownings after this, the Mark 1 all the way to the Mark 4, all use dual conversion. So, you know, to each their own. Again, I think if you're in a congested area, you would want a dual conversion. If you were in a area where it's not a lot of people out there talking over each other and noise and all that, you might want this one. But one of the major problems with this one is these IF cans. These early cans were made by Drake and Browning. They designed a better can than everybody else back then. And if you know anything about hams, the old Drakes that used these cans are considered some of the best analog receivers ever made to this day. Up there, Drake and Collins are considered about the best there is or was. And if you don't know the Browning story, Drake and Browning were once one company. I think it was called the Browning Drake Corporation. And then when CB hit, Drake decided he was going to go ham, and Dr. Browning decided, no, I'm going to jump on that CB bandwagon, and they split. But they both used these patented better IF cans. The problem is, over time, over decades, these IF cans have some very tiny, extremely tiny silver mica capacitors in them. Almost look like the size of surface mount. Is so small in there, internal to the can. And the silver in the silver mica tarnishes really, really bad, and it tarnishes over, and they short out. It messes them up. They don't work right. And it'll short out the can because of the tarnished over bad silver mica capacitors in there. And they're very small values too, like 5 picofarad, 4 picofarad. I don't know them exactly, but I know they're very tiny with very tiny wires. And you, again, this thing is now 60 years old. And I'm an old guy. You know, you gotta take the can out, take it apart, you know, deal with the very tiny, fragile silver mica capacitor and the tiny, fragile 60-year-old wires going to it. So it can be quite problematic, you know, to work on these if you got that silver mica problem. It's actually a name for that, SMD, silver mica disease. And it's not just in these cans, but these particular cans with the Browning and Drake radios are infamous for it, and it's called SMD disease. You get the silver mica disease on these, and you know it. You know, kind of depends on some other things too. If it's been stored in a damp environment, or you know had been bad temperatures, in an uncontrolled environment, that will aggravate the silver mica disease. If it's been stored in a good environment, dry, temperature controlled, you got better chances of it, surviving and not having that disease. You might find some radios that none of them have it. It works good. And you might find other radios where every single one has it. And then you got a problem and a headache. I haven't fired this one up yet, haven't played with it. This is just my initial thoughts and walkthrough on it. This one doesn't look bad, otherwise, it's a little dusty on the front. Not bad for a 60-year-old rate. Has not been recapped. That's an old paper electrolytic there. Looks like that one there has been replaced. Then it still has the original can cap in it, so it's definitely gonna need a cap job. Hope the silver mica's okay. One other thing that the Browning receivers, you get people asking all the time here on YouTube, even ask me, and I've seen it on Facebook, can you use a Browning receiver as a standalone? Yes. However, the voltage, some of the voltage that the receiver needs goes out of the receiver from the socket here and into the transmitter to a relay in the Browning transmitter, and then back into the receiver to turn it the receiver on during receive. And then when the transmitter keys up, it opens that relay, which turns off the voltage coming back to the radio for your receive. The ping cap keeps that voltage alive for a second or two, or however long the ping lasts. So basically with the ping of a Browning, you're keeping the receiver and the transmitter on at the same time for a few seconds until that ping cap discharges, and then the receiver doesn't have any more voltage. And before I forget though, if you want to use the receiver as a standalone, these two red wires here, pins 4 and 5. One way, if you look at the schematic, ground is pin 1 here, and you can see that that's grounded, hopefully. And 2, 3, and then 4 here is a red wire, and 5 is another one. Don't know if the camera is getting that pretty good, but if you short these two out, run a jumper or something across these pins 4 and 5, you can use the receiver as a standalone receiver, by itself. I think that's about it. Oh, I did ask on the last Browning I did. I said the front end was like burnt up, damaged, toast. And I asked, did anybody have any ideas of why? And that was a rhetorical question. I know the answer to it. He had a Browning with a decent ping in it, and it was a high-powered CBer. And I just first said that, I didn't say that right, excuse me, that the Browning receiver transfer, it keeps the receive on for a second or two until that ping capacitor discharges, right? So when you got a high-powered CBer, this was a high-powered CBer, no joke, that when you key down, and you're using a Browning receiver transmitter, and you keying down that high power for that second or two while that receiver is pinging, it's still receiving, and it's receiving that high power coming in, and that's what killed the front end of that radio that this high powered CBer had. Over time, every time he keyed down, with the high power on, that receiver is sucking in that high power, and the front end is the first first thing that the receiver receives. It receives that 27 megahertz coming in and amplifies it and all that, and you got a gigawatt station keying down. That receiver got hit with those, some of those gigawatts coming back, especially with the ping. While it's pinging, it's still got voltage and receiving, and on that radio, it killed the front end, the Novistors, this AGC choke, and even this tube here, and a couple other components were gone in that front end. And I say it rhetorically. You know, why did people think that that could happen? Well, there you go. It can happen with a regular radio over time, especially a long ping. But a high-powered guy using a Browning with the, you know, good-sized ping, oh boy. Sooner or later, you can cancel Christmas. I think that's it for this one. Beautiful audio with these things. Again, with that single conversion to wide and narrow, you know, if it's easy listening, put it on wide. And if it get crowded or congested, you know, put it on narrow to filter some of it out. But even on narrow, it's not going to be quite as good as a double conversion receiver in the all the rest of them, the Mark 1 all the way up to the 4A. I kind of like this one. I prefer the audio again when it's quiet, but when it's noisy, I go to something else. All right, that's it for this one. The Browning Golden Eagle. Well, it wasn't an Eagle, Golden Eagle, but it was an Eagle R27, and the matching transmitter is the S23. Okay, that's it for this one. Bye.